Okay, we're going to call to order the July 2025 meeting of the Homewood Planning Commission. If we could please start with a roll call.
All right. Mr. Goulas.
Here.
Ms. Andrus.
Here.
Mr. Broadhead.
Here.
Mr. Armstead.
Here.
Mr. Respento. Mr. Harwell. Ms. Wilcott. Here. Mr. Henninger. And Mr. Roberts.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Next on the agenda, approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes, one from April, one from May. I guess we can entertain separate motions on these. They look good to me. If they look good to everyone else, I'd entertain a motion to approve the April minutes without a formal reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the April minutes pass. Or the May minutes, again, I would entertain a motion
So
to approve
moved.
without a reading.
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved as well. All right, next, communications from the chair and vice chair, Mr. Armstead.
I don't have any communications.
Okay, and I don't either. We have a pretty decent crowd tonight. If circumstances change and we have some long-winded speakers, we might reduce the period of time people can address us during the public portion. For now, we'll leave that alone. And with that, we can move on to new business. The first case is AD 250701, which is amended development plan, 124 South Pointe Drive. The applicant and owner is Matthew York. If Mr. York could come forward and state your case.
Good evening. My name is Matthew York, homeowner of 124 South Pointe Drive, along with my wife, Rachel York. So we have been in Homewood for 10 years. Started in a little apartment, moved over to Edgewood. That's the rest of my family, my crew. You may hear them in the background. We started in a small apartment in Homewood. Always knew we wanted to own a home here. Ended up being fortunate enough to own one in Edgewood, and then moved to West Homewood about 4 years ago. In doing so, we've since had children. They attend Hall Kent, and it's been just an absolutely fantastic experience being in West. We've had a wonderful set of neighbors. They quickly embraced us, and it made it to where it was pretty evident for us that we wanted to be in a forever home in that place. However, our home was a little small, and so we knew that the day would come when we needed to expand or move, and moving was just not going to happen. After we had been in there for a minute. So the day came to make a plan, and we did. We originally had the screen porch that is under consideration here that is covered as an original piece of our development plan. However, after some light counsel, we found that if we were trying to move quickly, which, as you know, with children, you kind of don't want to be out of the house for too long, right? That it might be advisable to take that off of our original plan, just to go ahead and get permits as quickly as possible, not have to go through any additional studies, if that would please the zoning board. And so we took the cover off of that particular deck that's under consideration. That should be shown in the survey documents. It's the rear deck as indicated on those documents. So when we took that off, we actually had a baby right after that, and so we were kind of out of commission for a moment, circled back after we found our footing with 4, and began the process of amending our plan, hopefully to get that covered again. And so in doing so, we spoke with Frank, we spoke with Emily, the zoning board, and we had a great experience with them. They told us what we needed to do to approach this committee for approval for that update, consideration. That included addressing the survey, which would have to change. So we went to the survey office, got an amended survey that shows the coverage. They also mentioned that we would need to investigate the impervious area that might be affected by that change. And so we requested that the survey committee, or the survey company look at that, and so they did, and they found that there would be no increase in any risk associated with the impervious area coverage. So at that point, we gathered all the required documents, we submitted it to the committee for consideration, for the board's consideration for passing it to you. From our understanding, that there's really no variance necessary, but it was something that the zoning board wanted to see in terms of whether or not this would have any negative impacts on our community. In the meantime, we approached our neighbors about this just to make sure that they were okay with it, and we had 25 neighbors reach out to us in support. We have a big group chat, and everybody kind of piled in there and said, yes, add me to the list. So that's great, and I can submit that digitally to you if you like. There are roughly 7 screened-in porches in our neighborhood. The neighborhood is fairly tight, so we don't think that it's out of character to do this. In fact, in many cases, we're further back than some of the other covered structures in our neighborhood. So that's kind of where we approach you today for consideration, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. York. And before we ask you any questions we have to open it up to the public.
Okay.
Before we get there, though, if we could get you to write your name and address on the pad in front of you. And that goes for everyone else here tonight. If you come forward, either as an applicant or to speak on a case as a member of the public, if you would write your name and address on the piece of paper, it just helps us get all that straight when we put together our minutes. Thank you.
Done. Thank you.
All right. All right. This is a public hearing, so if anyone is here to speak on this case, this will be your opportunity to come forward. Okay, and seeing no one, and as I waited for Mr. York to get all the way back to his seat and just sit down, if you could come back up and answer any questions we have. And just, I guess for clarification, just for the public, because this neighborhood is a planned development, it's different than your typical single-family housing, the MPD that most of us are familiar with, in that any changes or a lot of changes at a certain threshold have to be approved by this body. Mm-hmm. So, and there are really no rules governing, other than what I guess the original development plan was. There are no real rules governing this. So, and it looks like though, if we were looking at NPD in terms of the height, someone from the city can speak to this. We're within the height requirements, correct? Within the city.
Yeah, so if this were an NPD lot, obviously they wouldn't have come to planning commission. The only thing that we would have been necessarily concerned with is the setback of the covered porch, I guess, because the setback in NPD would be 20 feet. So this is essentially them asking for a variance from you guys. But other than that, they meet all the other NPD requirements.
Okay, thank you.
You said you did have a document with your neighbors' signatures or?
Yes,
Yeah.
so it's kind of signed digitally. If you would like me to gather those physically, I totally can.
No,
but yeah,
digitally. Is that something you could submit to the record?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's digital right now. I can send you a PDF copy of that.
Yeah, send it to Fred.
To Mr.
Fred, yeah,
Goodwin,
okay,
yes.
I'll send it to you.
Send me for the record.
Absolutely.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
We'll make a motion to approve AD 250701.
Second.
All right. Mr. Broadhead,
Yes.
Mr. Goulas,
Yes.
Ms. Andrus,
Yes.
Mr. Armstead,
Yes.
Ms. Wilcott, and Mr. Roberts.
Yes, so this was approved 6-0. So,
Thank you for your time.
thank you,
Cheers.
absolutely. Okay, moving along, our next two cases are related cases, both having to do with, I'm looking for the address, oh, yeah, it's 1833 29th Avenue South. There's a, first case is RS 250704, which is a resurvey request. The other related case is RZ 250705, which is a request to rezone. Just so the public understands, the resurvey request is we make the final decision on that. We make a recommendation with respect to the rezone, which would then go, regardless of our vote, would still go to City Council for final approval. So, with the applicant is Michael Moran. If he could come forward, if he's speaking to this case?
Hey, I'm Mike Moran. This is Michael Shows of Chambliss King Architects. Sign in, I'll do it later. These two steps are related to the proposal I made to the city to purchase and redevelop the former Homewood Police Department into a restaurant, first-class, high-end restaurant, with about 2/3 of the site becoming a passive public park. And I did this having heard for years what a number of people in Homewood wanted. They wanted to try to have a park in that location. A large group of people wanted a park. The city wanted to sell the property. The city wanted a one-story building, which is what we've committed to do. And the city wanted an income-producing asset, hopefully, which is what we expect this restaurant to become. So this was my attempt to try to customize a development to fit what I understood to be the majority of the city's wishes. And it was approved, I think, 9-2 by the city council. So that then led to the necessity of having the land broken apart into two separate parcels, and then ultimately the parcel that I want to put the restaurant on being rezoned for that use. And that's what these two provisions are related to.
Okay, well, if there's nothing further from you at this point, we'll open up the public portion of this hearing. So if you're here from the public and here to speak on the case, this is your opportunity to come forward. Okay, well, seeing no one, we'll close the public portion. I'm sorry, I just did the exact same thing to you that I did before to Mr. York. Mr. Ron, if you could come back up and answer any questions from the commission.
At least I don't have any young children crying. At my age, that would have been quite a surprise. Questions?
Can you address any issues you were talking about, maybe entering into parking arrangements for your valet service? Has that been successful?
We have a verbal agreement, nothing in writing yet, with the owners of A-Loft to be able to park on the upper deck, and we'll move towards something more formal, you know, if and when I'm in the position to present myself as, qualified to be contracting with them. But if anybody's seen the upper level of the A-Loft, it's rather minimally used. And yet it's beautifully positioned because the stairs that connect the upper level to the street is directly across from where we're proposing to have the valet stand. So the valets could get the cars, go immediately up on the top deck, come down the stairway, and be back in a short period of time.
I will mention, Mr. Chairman, we discussed this in our pre-meeting, but just to give a little bit of background, you mentioned the Homewood Green Space Initiative. That was brought forth, it was like maybe 2017. I mean, it's been a while. And this room was filled with people here requesting us to use that space as a green space, as a public park in the middle of our downtown, that this was the only property that would be able to support the green space, that we would have the space for it, that the city owned the property, that it would be a nice amenity to downtown. They had a heat map. They showed the amount of asphalt in downtown. And, as the Ward 5 representative, a very large portion of that group were my constituents. And so then they came again the night we signed this resolution, which was March 31st. So this resolution was passed by the council March 31st, and a lot of those folks showed up again that night in support of this green space.
Thank you. I had a real quick question. Just, I know this isn't a final development plan. This is more of a sketched out plan in terms of how things will be oriented. I noticed that there was an outdoor dining area kind of on the, I guess, on the east side of where the steakhouse would be, adjacent to what part of the parking part. Do you have an idea, or at least a concept, of what sort of barrier, or what, what will be between those, where you have people dining outside and where the pocket part is?
Let me make sure. We'll of course have indoor dining. We'll have a good bit of dining outside but under cover, so that, complete with shades and everything that would allow for use during inclement weather, but hopefully most of the time it would be up. Then Mike, I believe, has shown some outdoor dining not covered, and that would be to the east. So maybe you can,
Yeah, I think
here's the
you're,
sketch up there.
yeah,
Right, just top
referencing the
side.
area that says outdoor dining, that would be the uncovered portion. We're trying to create an outdoor room, so it's a form of low vegetation and hedging to some extent. We don't want to hide it, but
Right.
it's intended to be an acoustic barrier from the street, and then create kind of a soft visual barrier between anybody maybe using the park and dining at the same time, so that you don't feel like you're, interrupting either activity.
We very much want the people dining there to be able to look out through the park onto the lights and the activity of the streets around there. So as Mike says, we're not trying to screen it as if it's to be blocked. We want to make it certainly visually attractive, both, from the outside looking in and the inside looking out.
And it looks like the valets, as you described earlier, the valets coming from 19 or going in and out will at least leave the bigger part of that pocket park kind of undisturbed from activity. Where would you, I guess you'd have people coming in, if they're parking on the street, or just coming in whichever direction.
I think it could be parking on the street, it could be parking in the surface level, out, beyond Soho or the City Hall. It could be underneath the City Hall, which is, I think, a rather woefully used
Correct.
public parking. So I don't think there's a lack of parking, because I think with a upper end restaurant, we expect most of the activity to be at night. And I think, given those hours, I think there's a good bit of parking available, especially if you have valet service. The reason I'm especially interested in the A-loft is the proximity to the valets, not so much the absolute need for parking, but just the proximity.
And in terms of operation, you just said most of it would be at night. It will be open during the daytime as well.
It will be, but I think on an upper-end restaurant like this, it would be more inclined to
Yeah.
be
At night.
much heavier at night,
Mhm. Okay.
and probably a bit later at night than, some of the restaurants. This, won't be fast casual. This will be very much a first-class, white tablecloth type dining experience.
Can someone from the staff also address what is in the zoning? I know we're talking about the subdivision right now, but as far as the C4 zoning, if one day the restaurant went away, what is allowed also in that space within that zoning? I know if you want me to wait and hold that question until we get to zoning, I can.
Yeah, let us pull it up.
Okay.
See, you're just asking what
Yes.
uses are allowed in that zoning
Mhm.
classification?
Yeah, I can pull it up. So, food and beverage, no drive-through, general retail is permitted. It looks like also a health and fitness studio would be permitted, a medical clinic or office. Some office use would be permitted, but there would be certain restrictions there. Professional services, personal services, which would be like an office space for maybe like architecture, or a personal service would be like a salon or studio. Government administrative offices. And indoor sport facilities, and that would be the last permitted use. So there are a few, but
It's retail shopping district. It's the same zoning classification as everything on 18th
Right.
Street between 28th and.
Right, you can see in looking at that zoning map, you can see the subject property outline, but all of those properties in purple to the west, that would be consistent with that zoning classification. And looking at the recommended land use plan calls for mixed use, so that would be compatible with that adopted land use plan as well. But that would, the zoning classification would be consistent with all those retail businesses that you see outlined in purple to the west. Yeah.
Well, if there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion. I guess we should start with the resurvey, 250704.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Mr. Broadhead,
Yes.
Mr. Goulas,
Yes.
Ms. Andrus,
Yes.
Mr. Armstead,
Yes.
Ms. Wilcott. And Mr. Roberts.
Yes, so that request has been approved by a 6-0 vote. The next case is RZ 250705, the rezone request, which, as I said earlier, will go to City Council with our recommendation one way or the other. I'd entertain a motion on that case.
Motion to approve. Second.
I'm sorry, who's second?
Second.
Second.
Oh,
All right, thank you.
I did want to ask, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask before we closed out, if you don't mind. I know we got a motion in a second, but Fred, can you also address the letter that we got in favor of this
Right,
project?
yes. As with all zoning cases, we sent out notices of tonight's meeting to all property owners within 500 feet, which included all the condominium owners as well. So, but out of those, we really only received one comment, an email from one of his residents in the condominiums expressing support for both the park and the proposed rezoning. So we did receive one out of, as I say, within 500 feet, but we've received no expressions of opposition. Okay. So Mr. Goulas made the motion, and it was seconded by Mr. Armstead. So now we'll take the roll call. Mr. Broadhead,
Yes.
Mr. Goulas,
Yes.
Ms. Andrus,
Yes.
Mr. Armstead,
Yes.
Ms. Wilcott, and Mr. Roberts.
Yes, so your rezone request will go forward with a 6-0 positive recommendation to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, communications from staff. Do we have anything to discuss this?
No.
Okay, well, with that, I will make a motion and grant it to adjourn.